Welcome to Fear Factor. The stunts you are about to see have been designed and supervised by trained professionals. They are extremely dangerous and should not, I say should not, be attempted by anyone, anywhere, at any time. So, are you ready for some outrageous adventures? This ride is most certainly not for everyone, and clearly not for the faint at heart. Are you ready to begin? First question. Have you already voted in Virginia on the redistricting referendum? By the end of March, breaking participation records for a general election, over 600,000 residents had already voted, and you may be one. Although the final vote is not until April 21st, early voting has begun and has been underway since March 6th, running to April 18th, 2026, with a deadline for applying for an absentee ballot tab set for April 10th, 2026. And some informed voters in the seventh most educated state in the nation, falling right behind New Jersey, are being told to vote yes, and others are being told to vote no in a referendum question that has been political from the very beginning, which pretty much for all practical purposes turns this into a partisan contest, even if no candidate is actually on the ballot. You roll the belt here and you look like an intelligent person. Last year, Virginians knew pretty early that they were going to make history, and the only big question that had remained undecided to sort through in their heads was which woman running for governor would become the first woman to occupy the governor's mansion. Very easy. As in all things in an identity politic, however, the issue of race did arise, diverting some attention for a short while from what was described as the primary issue, battling over cultural and social issues, liberal, conservative, connected to education, but not addressing necessarily academic performance and outcomes, which had been subordinated to issues about restrooms, extracurricular activities, and choices of personal pronouns. And some cases were brought to court about restrooms and Title IX, which made provocative headlines in the news, galvanizing partisan fervor to get out the votes for their candidates during the elections. Some of those cases are still in court, but have passed from the headlines, and some of those cases have been long over and forgotten. But they had done their job to make headlines and get people out to vote. Similarly, diversity, equity, and inclusion had made headlines, and perhaps with a new administration, some students in underperforming public schools will have some new electives that will probably not impact their range of opportunities after graduation or enhance their performance for acceptance to more or even better colleges. But they had served their purpose and got their voters to the polls on election day. And you look like an intelligent person, but it's fear a factor for you. Learning losses attributed to the pandemic response, persistent achievement gaps for children of color, and even the shocking news that Virginia had the lowest cutoff scores in the nation, overinflating the actual achievements of students in public schools, where almost 60% are now known to be failing basic academic proficiency tests, appeared to be first in mind priority for parents voting in that election, and in the end, the party with the most voters won. On the issue of restrooms, pronouns, and extracurricular activities, not academic performance. That suggests that voters are far more concerned about their party winning than even issues affecting their own children. And you look like an intelligent person. But is fear a factor for you? Although both candidates had begun neck and neck in the fundraising in January 2025, Abigail Spanberger had amassed a strong lead by June, attracting over $27 million by July, and would outspend her opponent by $2 million in the end, going into the final months of the election with a $3 million lead in cash flow. And most would say that money is a very strong predictor for outcomes in elections. But does any person actually go to the polling place and even know how much money a candidate had raised or spent, and then use that information to decide to vote for the candidate who had raised or spent the most money? Probably not. But money helps to purchase advertising and finance marketing budgets, conduct focus groups to find out what things to say to make people to come out to vote, while also financing get out the vote efforts to make sure that they get to the polls on election day. That money moves people to the polls in another way. And if you are that polling place, if you are at that polling place to cast your vote for your party and your candidate, it is probably because somebody paid some money to motivate you to be at that right place at the right time, to do the right thing, because you didn't do your homework. And we're not going to vote unless someone told you to do so. And you look like an intelligent person. But is fear a factor for you? And now in an off-cycle election that will greatly affect the midterm elections, Virginians are voting on a proposed congressional map that could eliminate all but one Republican-leaning district, joining other states across the nation in both parties rushing to withdraw congressional districts ahead of the November midterm elections to once again vote for your party choice. And Republicans are screaming that Republicans may be disenfranchised. But if you are a Democrat, do you really care? Is fear a factor for you? And so, although election watchers like the New York Times are being very, very cautious on making predictions about how this election shall turn out, it is known that 48% of those who have already voted had been Democrats and 32% had been Republicans, probably making their decisions on predictable party lines. Some 20% have absolutely no primary history, but have voted already. And so it is not yet known how they may have decided to vote on this very, very partisan issue, rather than staying out. However, what is also known, if you have already voted, is that the actual zip codes, affected streets, and exact boundaries of your possibly new congressional district are not salient issues for you, because that level of detail has yet to be distributed, even to candidates trying to solicit signatures, beyond a general graphic to depict what the prize in the Cracker Jack box might possibly look like in the end. Details clearly are not a factor for you if you have already voted. Your party, right or wrong, and you look like an intelligent person. Most intelligent people know that if you are a Latino person, unless perhaps you are Cuban, you probably vote for Democrats. If you are an evangelical Christian, you probably vote for Republicans. And if you are black, you probably vote for Democrats, almost like adherence to religious doctrine. Anything else would be blasphemy in your mind. And so for practical purposes, keeping it real, as they say, the business of partisan politics is inexplicably intertwined with the issue of both religion and race for you and that mass of the voting public. And this referendum stands to test that proposition because one unspoken issue is all about your commitment to issues like voting rights and the Voting Rights Act, which dictates that even though partisan gerrymandering is perfectly legal, as recently decided in a case by a Supreme Court that started this whole whirlwind of redistricting across the nation, it is a prohibited practice, however, to dilute minority opportunity districts, cutting them off at the knees as they try to rise to power. And if people claim to be colorblind, the historical record says that persons of color are generally not elected where there are not concentrations of people of color. And this is an issue in at least 3 districts about to be redrawn if this measure passes, including Bobby Scott's district, Alan Tidewater, Jennifer McClellan's district in Richmond, and Don Byers' 48% minority district in Northern Virginia. And nobody on either side, Republican or Democrat, is saying anything at all about that for whatever reason. And if you did not know that about the Voting Rights Act, even worse, we're not aware that we had minority opportunity districts in Virginia. And we're not taught that in school, at least now, that it can't otherwise be sufficient. But here is one more thing about the Voting Rights Act that you probably don't know, especially if you're more concerned about Republicans and Democrats, R's and D's, and who wins elections in your party. And probably don't even care. Under the Voting Rights Act, no citizen shall be denied because of his or her failure to comply with any test or device the right to vote. Most people think of that in terms of literacy tests, polling taxes, etc. That is the law under 52 U.S.C. Section 10501A. And that may sound self-explanatory. You would never get caught doing that. But let's just discuss one issue currently in litigation before the federal courts and not even discussed in the press, again, for whatever reason. When the Voting Rights Act prohibits tests or devices, this is a legal term of art, and the term test or device also means any requirement that a person, as a prerequisite for voting or registration for voting, demonstrate the ability to read, write, understand, or interpret any matter. And we already know that some 60% of kids are graduating from high schools unable to read or write. And especially if you had already voted, as now, according to the press, black voters are coming out in droves to do now, did you bother to read what you are casting your vote for? Was this a test of your reading and understanding comprehension skills? There is not even a map out yet to tell you exactly what district you may be in during the midterm elections after you're voting. While you vote to roll back the protections of minority opportunity districts in the Voting Rights Act, you did know that before you had voted, right? Some 600,000 people have already voted. We must assume that they knew exactly what they were doing. Under the Voting Rights Act, the term test or device also means any requirement that a person has a prerequisite for voting or registering to vote demonstrate an educational achievement or his knowledge of any particular subject. And if you had already voted, then clearly doing homework is not a factor for you, or you voted the way that you felt. And as an informed, educated, and enlightened voter, certainly we must presume that you know that the County of Arlington is the most educated municipality in the entire state. The second most educated by credentials in the entire nation, second only to Atlanta. In Arlington, nearly half of all persons aged 25 and older hold at least a graduate degree. And 8 in 10 hold at least a 4-year college degree. And so one must presume also that as highly educated voters act with intention and purpose and know what he or she is doing, then they should know also that for people of color, people that don't necessarily look like them, only 1 in 10 hold a 4-year college degree in Arlington and are not quite as educated as their white neighbors and fellow Democrats. And you have to ask then whether a really good person who has already voted, sight unseen on maps, without any reading or thought, would ever take advantage of a person of clearly less education, not even inform him about what he was going to do. And if you already voted, obviously, fear is not a factor for you. This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest.